Welcome back to Zero Gravity Live, the Weightless Weekly Tech Podcast, bringing all the latest discussions right to you. Listen, we're sponsored by Object First Ootby, the best storage for Veeam. And if you've watched this show before, you already know. If you're on YouTube, ring the bell, give us a like, leave us a comment. If you're watching on LinkedIn, let us know where you're coming in from. If you're watching from YouTube, we also want to know. And if you're watching on LinkedIn and you're wondering, like, where are all the extra pixels going? They're on YouTube. So, I always recommend watch on YouTube, get that 4K action. Are we in 4K, Matt? No, we're 1080, aren't we? Okay. Well, the pixels, we care about the pixels here on the show. And if you're listening in audio form on podcast, we welcome you to and ask that you share with your friends and leave us a nice little review. I'm Anthony, joined by my fellow co-hosts, Matt and Sterling. How y'all doing today?
Doing good, man. Doing good.
Feeling great. Gorgeous day here. We're into the summer season. It's doing awesome. How are you?
I'm doing fantabulous, but I'm going to be doing a lot better when I find out what's going on in y'all's office. So I know before the show, Matt, you whipped out your wallet and said it's something to talk about. I want to know what's the deal with your wallet.
Well, so full disclosure, I had another call that ran right up to our show today, so I didn't have an opportunity to go digging for something really cool. And I feel like everything in my purview that's right out of shot here, I've already talked about. I've got the Pocket 3 rocking right here and some other things. But I tell you, Anthony, every time I go somewhere and I pull out my wallet, people will make a comment like, that's the coolest thing ever. Where'd you get it? So this is called the flip side. This has got nothing to do with technology whatsoever.
What a cool color.
I think it's really cool because, more people are starting to, at least more guys are doing the front like pocket wallets versus the old Costanza. You sit on a slant in your back pocket wallet. And what's really cool about
permanent damage to your back.
Yeah, exactly. Your vertebrae is getting out of kilter. But one of the things I love about it is it's got a quick access port for, let's say, your most commonly used card.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's got a locking mechanism. And when it opens up, you actually have a slot here, my trusty Costco card. But there's also probably about, I would say 4 to 5 that you can get like right in this little holder area. Then you've got, cards here, and this will also hold about 4. But then wait, there's more. Flip it this way.
Oh, look at
and you've
that.
got your ID, and you actually have a money clip where you can clip money right there. And when it's closed, everything is nice and tight. And you also have an attachment, right? So this attachment will replace this little card slot. So if you, let's say you're going to a show and you want to put some business cards in there, you can just place your business cards under this little rubber strap, and there you go. It's like the
upgradable wallet. Are you kidding me? It's so crazy, Matt. I just saw something on the interwebs yesterday. It was a new style wallet where you hit a button and all of your credit cards come out, but they come out in sort of a cascaded thing to make them easy to use. And so this is pretty awesome because the wallet has not been innovated for like ever. And I'm glad we're starting to see some like new innovations. I've always been one of those, the thin wallet guys, not the Costanzas, like normally in the back. But now we have our health cards, and then I live in a condo. It's the access key. It's the Costco. It's like all of these things continue to just build until you're sort of Costanzing.
Well, and too, real quick on that topic about the one that put your cards out. So the Ridge wallet is super common, right? I know Marquez from NK, his review channel, MKDBHD or whatever it is. So he's now partnered with Ridge Wallet. But my problem there is there's just not enough real estate in that thing, to your point, Sterling. Like this is still, to me, very thin. I mean, it's pretty much, the width of your thumb, let's say. So it's still very flat. But I mean, I can keep 12 cards in there plus cash plus my driver's license, and it's nice and closed. To me, that's why I've never looked at any of those thinner ones, because unless you only have 2 or 3 cards with your ID, that's about the only time those are useful.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Is it bulletproof? That thing is thick. I need it. Can it stop a bullet? Not from like an elephant rifle or anything.
Not bulletproof, but it is Object First Orange.
Oh well, I guess all of my qualms have been sated. I'm the weirdo because I go for the thin wallet and I don't even carry it in my pocket. I keep it in my man purse. So, why do I even do that? I don't know. But maybe I should get one of these because it seems way more convenient than what I'm rocking. Thank you for sharing. What was that called, Matt?
It's called the Flip Side.
Flip side. I might be doing
Pick it up at your local Amazon.
That's pretty slick. I do like that.
thrilling. I know you don't have something to share physically, but there is an image. I've heard there's an image.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. What I have to share today is not something that's in my office, although, leave it up to me, it probably could be in my office soon. What I have to share today is really something along the motif of our entire team here. You know, we talk about being zero gravity, weightless, frictionless. Well, there is a battery version of that. Oh, wait, hold on. It's not showing up here.
Uh-oh.
I was just working. There's a battery view, a view of a battery that I was showing that's actually called zero gravity batteries. And these batteries are lithium batteries made specifically for motorcycles. So these are actually pretty cool because they can shave off, let's say on a motorcycle, an average motorcycle is 350 to 400 pounds. They can go 600, 800, but let's just call it on an average. The average battery is 10 pounds. Yeah. And so you put in one of these bad boys into the bike and it literally drops it by 9 pounds. So think about that. Something that gives you more cold cranking amps, more power to start it up. It lasts much longer, doesn't need to be plugged in. It can literally last for, I've seen them actually over a year sitting without going flat. Yeah. And you're saving all this weight. So a lot of you out there might be thinking, why don't I just put one of these bad boys in my car? Some people do, but let me tell you, if it's your daily driver, there are a couple of small downsides. If you live in an environment that gets really cold, sometimes these lithium batteries have a tough time really cranking in really cold weather. And also for your daily driver to save 20, 30, 40 pounds, it sounds like a whole lot. But for the cost differential, it's probably for a car battery, hundreds, if not into the thousands of dollars. And so you have to ask yourself, if you're not racing or if you're not tracking the vehicle, is it really worth the squeeze of for the juice? So that was what I had shared today. I'm not too sure why it's not pulling up, but it's an awesome battery if you're looking for an easy way to shave some pounds.
I'm sure everyone listening to the podcast appreciated your verbal description of the item. So all good, Sterling. Now, my only issue with lithium ion is it seems like it's an imperfect technology.
Yeah.
Right? Battery. Well, actually,
wait,
I don't
there it
have
is.
Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay. So now we can all see.
Yeah.
That is, it looks like a battery.
Yeah.
It does look like a battery.
It feels just like it. It's just super light.
Yeah. Yeah. We went from what was it? Salt acid to lithium ion. And now they're saying again, salt might be the next battery technology yet again that we get into, because lithium ion explodes, it gets hot, it doesn't work in the cold, like you're saying, it's imperfect.
Yeah.
But one day, man, I'm super excited for the day that we don't really have to worry about batteries anymore, because we figured out something better than storing power in these devices that just don't operate given all the different circumstances.
Yeah. Sterling, I've actually held one of those batteries, and it's almost comically light. Like, for a battery, it doesn't seem possible that it works,
right?
But it actually works.
Yeah.
There's a reason why they call it anti-gravity, for sure.
Yeah, it literally feels like a toy, doesn't it, Matt? Like, it doesn't feel like it should be that light. The packaging is strange. I pretty much have all of my motorcycles, even my former race bike, switched over to these anti-gravity batteries, because for me, I can feel the difference in side-to-side roll of the bike, and the cold cranking amps never come in not handy. So
yeah, no doubt.
Very nice. Well, cool. Thank you for sharing that, gentlemen. Always appreciate seeing what's going on in your office. I got nothing to show, so we'll just move right on. Speaking of moving on, I know we've got some interesting topics this week. Matt, you're up first. What do you got?
Yeah, so this was interesting. I actually saw Anton Gostev, for those of you who know him, one of the heads, or the head of product management over at Veeam. He posted this on X the other day, and I thought, this was really eye-opening. So when we think about security vulnerabilities with applications, and prime example, when we think about phishing email attempts and things such as this, it seems like historically, and maybe I have been living under a rock, but it seems like historically you always had to do some sort of action to activate the vulnerability, right? It's always like, don't open that suspect email attachment. Well, we all know that, right? You open a .exe file, you know what? Godspeed, right? Because you know that's going to have an issue. But what I found really interesting about this is there was a very recent security vulnerability in Outlook, coincidentally, pretty much what everybody uses for their email client, where you did not even have to open the email. So it's like,
Oh,
like in other words, when you're going through your emails and you see your inbox and you first click on it just to view it, that's when the vulnerability was activated. And I'm like, whoa, talk about like next level triggers. Because for me, that's something that I would never even thought was possible,
yeah.
because you're not really doing anything. You're not clicking a link. You're not opening an attachment. You're literally just viewing the email. But something in the code, and there was this security vulnerability. You can see the timeline there. See if I can zoom in a little bit. So April 3rd is when this was first reported, and it wasn't patched until June 11th. So talk about that
Jeez.
that gap of like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
how about everybody just stay out of Outlook until we get this vulnerability patched? Like that's next level though, gents.
Yeah.
Zero click vulnerability. Like
Yep.
I feel like we always talk about 0 day,
Yeah.
but I've not heard of a zero click before.
Me
That's
either.
scary.
Me
Like,
either.
that's really so. What's the impact of this? You might have said it and I missed it, but what
Uh,
happens if
well,
you scroll past an email with one of these?
Yeah, well, it depends on what the attack is. I think this one wasn't necessarily specific to one type of malicious act. It was just a vulnerability in the program
Hmm.
where code could be called to action if you just open the email.
Yeah.
So again, this one was like more of a Microsoft, like, uh-oh,
Yeah.
Outlook is super vulnerable to
Yeah.
anybody who might want to target this type of vector. So let's get it patched. And I just thought it was a little shocking it took that long to patch, for something so severe.
So this is if you open it, right? Now, what constitutes an open? I'm asking for all my
Well,
reading pain people out there.
this is my understanding, right? And if you're in Outlook, at least on a desktop, right, and you've got your inbox and you're just clicking from email to email where you get the reading pane on the right, that's opened.
Yeah.
And that's like disturbing because to me, I almost look at that as like I
That's
didn't do an
crazy.
action. I'm
Yeah.
using Outlook like Outlook's supposed to be used,
Yeah.
viewing inbound email. Like I said earlier, opening an attachment. I mean, obviously those come with known risks,
Yeah.
right? Depending on what it is, but just to see the text and the body of the email, that's scary.
So, man, this is concerning because one, Outlook, like you said, is the most used mail app on the planet by a large margin. Like most big businesses are using 365 and Outlook.
Yeah.
It's scary because it's zero click, right? You don't know you have it. It's in your infrastructure. I think this perfectly highlights, we talk about zero trust data resilience and zero trust a lot on this show, because it's important. But when we talk about segmentation and we talk about backup storage and backup software, the reason we segment those things is because one should not ever influence the other if there is a breach, right? We want to separate as much as we can. How do you separate yourself from Outlook, right? Like
Yeah.
this is the thing that literally connects everything together. I mean, how much of your day is driven by email?
Yeah.
I receive a file, I receive an attachment. That's how I'm going to go do my job. I have to go communicate with somebody. Like, yeah, we have Slack and the tools, but Outlook is the connective tissue
Yeah.
that most organizations need to tie them together. You can't really segment yourself from this. You
Yeah.
can't zero trust Outlook. So what do you do? Like, I don't have an answer, but this is concerning to me.
Yeah, and
Um,
I hit the Microsoft site, and technically, according to them, this wasn't exploited. It was just a known vulnerability that could have been, but that's
yeah,
what they know, right? I mean, who knows? There could have been exploits that are yet to be reported from this window gap that happened. So you're right. I don't know how you, I don't know how you segment Outlook out of your lives unless it's a different email client. But in the
right.
Microsoft world, there is no secondary.
I think it lends to this is why you need to use different passwords and accounts for everything, right? Because even if it's just compromising your information, if it's gathering things from you, you still need to ensure as much differentiation there as possible. And,
Yep.
don't put anything precious on your laptop because in a
Yeah.
moment you could scroll past an email in a moment's notice, it's all locked down and
Oh,
gone.
Crazy
man.
talk.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy.
Yeah. Woof. You brought like I'm Johnny Rain. I mean, I'm still going to be Johnny Raincloud, but you
No
brought
more
the
email.
rain today, Matt.
Dude, I saw Anton tweet that the other day, and I'm like, 0 click.
Yeah.
Like,
That's a yikes.
yeah, that's next level. I hadn't heard of that one yet.
Nor had
I feel like in the past, wasn't there a text message that was going around, I don't know, maybe 18, 24 months ago, maybe have my timing wrong, where there was an exploit that was executed just by receiving this message?
Yes.
Right. So
What was
this sort of zero interaction attack is something that sounds familiar to me, but obviously not something as big on the email scene.
It was called
Right?
something power, right?
Yeah.
Like you would send them a text and it had like a combination of like Arabic characters
Right.
and emoji. Like it was, but when you sent that text, it could restart your phone, and it was an Apple vulnerability in the message, in the way that like it was receiving the characters and executing on the back end. This is scary stuff. It was sent to me, and it scared the crap out of me.
Yeah.
So we just gotta we have to accept that every single device can be compromised.
Yep.
And every single app inside the device can then compromise the device. It's
Well said.
It's a messy
said.
world.
Zero trust is life. I mean, really, there's no other way around it today. And we talk about a lot from on the backup portion of it, the segmentation of the permissions, but it's everywhere today. Even in the physical world, you can't trust the person that's walking in behind you into a door. I could go on.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Rough stuff. Well,
For
thanks,
sure.
Matt, for that.
Yeah.
Good, great way to start the day.
Yeah.
Hey,
Don't check your email.
Maybe this is a new reason to just keep your inbox empty.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, how are you going to empty it if you don't know what's in there? You gotta scroll through.
Don't look. No more email.
Look, we just came up with the best excuse to not do your job. Tell your boss I can't read my email because I don't want to, put the company at risk.
Yeah. Hey, boss, I'm keeping you safe.
That's right. I feel protected not reading my
Always
email.
thinking.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sterling, what do you have for us today?
I have to share a little something with you all, which is a report, the 2024 report of the riskiest connected devices. So, you should check out this report. It's actually a pretty good read. But the TLDR, just to kind of skip through, what are the riskiest devices of 2024? Well, they're categorized like this: IT devices, Internet of Things, operational technology, and Internet of Medical Things. So the IT devices, they're listing as routers, access points, and this one I thought was really interesting considering what we're talking about, hypervisors, which of course allows the attackers to attack multiple VMs at a certain time, encrypting, moving, deleting. And so these devices were ranked number one on the attack vector of riskiest connected devices. The Internet of Things, we're talking about the IP cameras, VoIP, printers, and of course, NAS. We talk a lot about the segmentation of data. This list is really pointing it out to us right here. Your VMs are not safe. They're attacking that right away. NAS was also on the list of Internet of Things for obvious reasons. It's where your data lies right at the end of an IP address, right? But also they're commonly found online, have significant vulnerabilities, and often exploited by botnets. When we talk about the operational technology part, it's UPSs, smart lighting, UPS. They're involved in power monitoring and, of course, data center power management, and they're often left with the default credentials in place. And the consequences of an attack there could include power loss. So that's 3 on the list. And of course, rising but new to the list is the Internet of Medical Things. They connect to things like health records, billing informations. The criticality of all the data is truly there. We're talking about imaging workstations, often left unpatched and exposed online. We're talking about picture archiving systems and even some ECGs that are used to actually get some of that deeper patient data from the patients themselves, really are just left connected wide open. So those are the riskiest things for 2024. Scary, huh?
Can you? I don't know if you have more information on the hypervisors bit, but I'm curious, and it's not because I'm gonna talk about this on my topic or anything. But I'm just wondering what makes the hypervisor the most riskiest connected device.
It must be because if they don't go into this, I'm going to take a stab at it. And Matt, you can tell me what you think too. You know how we as admins sometimes do. We rip from templates, we throw them up in the infrastructure. We didn't patch them. They're sitting out there. Oops, I left the NIC on. It's connected directly to the internet, not through, a particular VLAN that actually creates a little bit of a DMZ. I bet you that is why they're talking about that. But they specifically called it out. If you check out this article, it is specifically called out as one of the riskier things right below forward-facing routers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. We'll talk more about that in a minute, but Matt, I'm curious to hear what you think.
Well, you had me at dark reading, Sterling.
I mean,
Right at the top of the page. I'm like, oh, this is going to be great.
yeah.
No, I think the hypervisor, to your point, it's connected to literally the rest of the virtual infrastructure. So if somebody were to find a vulnerability or a hole, maybe their distributed virtual switching weren't locked down right. Maybe there was a port left open. Maybe somebody didn't block 3389 and RDP is just wide open to the outside world. I mean, there's a lot of potential vulnerabilities that people could overlook and could miss. And if somebody gained access to the hypervisor, well, I mean, all the VMs, the data stores, I mean, they could blow everything away. Technically, they could delete the VMs without even needing to get into the VM, right? So it's like a lot of potential risk, especially to businesses, leaving stuff like that connected. Whereas I kind of jokingly go back to the connected toothbrush. What's anybody going to do if they hack your toothbrush, bro? So it's like, I guess there's different levels of risk based on connectivity, right? Yeah. And I definitely think from a business perspective, the hypervisor, I mean, that is the business if they run virtualization.
If you get underneath it, they own it.
I mean, my big problem with all of this is we can't just walk away from these technologies, right? Outlook, hypervisors, medical devices, Internet of Things, like we're way too ingrained in this technology to simply say, well, it's too risky, it's too insecure, it's too unreliant. Let's pack it up, move on to something. There is nothing else, right? Like there's nothing else that we can use. And the challenge truly seems to be that you can't secure it. So you accept that it will always be vulnerable. Yeah. But then what? Like there has to be a means to an end in all of this and how we say, okay, everything sucks, but here's how we get through it, right? Like there has to be an uptick. Yeah. Right. I'm struggling to see it these days.
You know what? Go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say, this is something similar came up with, the VMware changes that are going on in the industry today. Mm-hmm. Everybody's like, well, they'll just jump to Kubernetes or they'll jump to containers. I'm like, well, not so fast. Yeah. Like to your point, like there's a spot for containers, there's a spot for virtualization. They are not the same in any stretch of the imagination. Correct. So it's like there's tech that's always going to be around, to your point, Anthony. It always has to be, unless we want to go back to the non-virtualized server, one server does this, one server does that. Hey, hardware companies would love it. But, I just don't think that's the answer either. So I think, to your point, there's bound to be a way that as bad actors and as malicious attacks increase, we also have to, increase and elevate the tech and the sophistication of the good guys to make sure everything is just that much more secure.
I kind of feel like the answer is sort of somewhere in between. We're starting to see a little bit of a twist, and I think some of our industry right now. I mean, if you even look at, to your point, the ideas of VMs and then using the Kubernetes, for a declarative process for something that's just one to many for bursting. I mean, there's really nothing better. But VMs answer a different kind of an infrastructure consideration and thought, and so solutions. Many big solutions really kind of contain both. We saw this huge pivot to the cloud 5-6 years ago. Everybody starts throwing their data into the cloud. Object storage blew up, all of the facets of those pieces that people like. But then again, here came all of the new threat vectors that were pointing other things out. The true zero trust process, not being able to bring data back in a true and efficient way. And so things and solutions that actually augment that. We know people aren't going to stop using the cloud, but when it comes time and you're at the 0 second to try to rebuild your infrastructure, you probably want some of that storage on premises to be able to bring it back quickly. And so it's kind of hard to sit here to be like on premises storage is the future. But at the same time, when we start to look at some of these new things that are coming out, the new threat vectors, the way we use technology, I feel like we're just going to see a bigger segmentation when we start to see what tools are used where.
Completely agree. And it's funny, both topics we discussed segmentation and the importance thereof. And it's not just at the hardware layer, right? Like we can segment at the software layer, the service layer, the operating system layer, and the person layer, right? Like the people layer, we can implement segmentation as well. And I think we'll get more into that in a second. But this is super, man, like I feel like we're just batting for 3 on the Johnny Rainclouds today. Here we go. So what I want to talk about is a former IT employee gets 2.5 years for wiping 180 virtual servers. This individual who worked for a company was fired, and after he was fired, executed a script that he'd been working on for apparently months, which might explain why he got fired. To do damages estimated at 678. I think is that million? I don't. There's an extra zero on there. I don't really know how the extra zero works.
There is an extra zero.
6,780,000 is the number I'm guessing. They had been working on the script for a while, just in case they ever were removed from the company. And when they found out they were fired, they executed the script, and it went and just purged 180 virtual servers. Now there's a funny moment in this tale. So one little ray of hope. The investigator mentions that the individual developed the wiper script via Google searches on how to delete virtual servers. So the man was exposed from his internet history. That's how they were able to figure out that he was the one who committed the crime. So now, go ahead, Matt.
I have to ask, is this Initech? I feel like I've seen this movie before.
It is Office Space.
And that's the rounding zero, that extra zero that was
that extra zero. Yes, exactly. It is, man, life imitates art, right? Like that's what happens over and over again. It's not all fun and games. This individual is going to jail for, I believe it is a minimum of 2 years.
Oof. Yeah.
Sentenced to 2 years, 8 months in prison. So it's no light sentence. But the reason I brought this up, and this is the joy of this show, is I didn't know what topics y'all were going to bring. I thought I was going to Johnny Raincloud it, but here I am, just fitting right in. Yeah. We talked about Outlook. Everyone uses Outlook. We talked about the riskiest connected devices, hypervisors right there. And then, bam, this human being goes and proves every point correct, literally works at the company, does his job, gets fired, goes and commits a major crime.
Yep.
How do you stop it? Yeah. What can you do? And I figured we could just talk about that for a few minutes.
Yeah. So this is like the whole reason why, a lot of times when we have an opportunity to talk about zero trust, we talk about immutability, we talk about ransomware, but people forget people are a threat also. Mm-hmm. When we talk about immutability is not enough, that's very true. Ransomware is just one such cyber threat that is just really hot in today's world. But there's always going to be bad people, always going to be people that, set out to inflict harm, whether bodily or cyber, just like in this case, right? And it's like, that's the point of why when we talk about like this whole zero access to root and everything is pre-provisioned with our, box, a little OOTB plug here. It's like you literally take that out also, as a potential threat. And I feel like in today's world, it's just getting overshadowed with ransomware. Like a ransomware is just this, you're talking about Johnny Raincloud, like ransomware is the cloud. And like people forget that, John over there in the corner just wrote a script to delete the whole data store. So it's like, what do you do at this point?
Production's always going to be the point of attack, right? Like we even talk about this in some of our own material. Like 93% of attacks now go after the backup. It's because they know that if they go after production, it's likely the backup's going to be the point of recovery. So they go for both now, right? I got to attack backups. I got to attack live production. This individual went after live production. The article doesn't mention whether they restored from backup or not. I'm hoping they had backups and they were able to get something back, but that's why we do that. And furthermore, that's why we use zero trust data resilience to segment that, right? You have your OOTB locally, and then you might be using someone like Backblaze off in the cloud. That way, if he takes a hammer to your OOTB, he destroys your servers locally, you still have that third place, right? It's the 3-2-1 rule or 3-2-1-1-0. you want to be extra cautious, which I recommend. Like there is no perfect plan for recovery.
No.
And that's what we see over and over again is no matter what you're planning on, something will go worse than expected. So just take every precaution you can when assuming the worst.
I think you're spot on. And it's really interesting when we kind of think about this. I actually feel like for once that isn't actually a Johnny Raincloud story, because guess what? This guy did some malicious activity and he got caught. And I think that really needs to be the message that really goes out there. That same technology that we talk about from our perspective, who's watching you, what information is your toothbrush given, what connected devices are way too connected or way risky. That also does turn on the bad guys as well. And we have seen some bad guys be brought down because of traces that they've left. And so
search history.
Yeah, it's good to see, in this case, search history of how do I delete servers. God, I can't even, I don't even know where to go with that. But it's nice to know that
there was a reason he was fired,
Right? I mean, I hate to see the rest of his search history. I can only imagine. But this is exactly the point that I hope that we'll continue to have tools and frameworks. We have the zero trust, the segmentation of backup framework, but there are other tools that are going to be coming out that will help us use and implement these frameworks that I really feel are going to help us battle these bad guys, because boy, do we need it.
Yep. And it's the point I made earlier. Like, you can segment your software, you can segment your operating systems, you can segment your hardware. You got to segment your people too.
Yep.
I don't think this person should have had all the keys to the kingdom. There needs to be segmentation of roles and responsibilities as well. Part of the original zero trust model created by CISA and NIST was that you have verification steps every part of your way when you go through systems of verification and identity access. This person should not have been able to just go run a script that deletes everything. Delete needs to be a 2-person operation at a minimum, right? Like, we need to verify these activities. So there's ways that we can improve these processes through education, through software, through security practices. And it all goes to say that we're going to keep talking about it week after week, because until it stops, I think we have to continue to do so. But it is good to see a criminal gets caught.
Yeah. So, Sterling, you might remember this shameless plug for Veeam. If they had been running Veeam 1, there's actually a report that would show infrastructure changes by user.
That's right.
Where they could have easily just ran the report, search history or not.
That's right.
And saw the username that deleted all 180 VMs. So there's definitely some checks and balances to have in place. And to your point, Anthony, I think that more than ever is why it's important that we have that whole zero trust data resilience methodology in our company, and especially with our product. It's like, look, yes, there are good admins, but there are bad admins. How about we just don't give you access altogether regardless? That way we don't have to decide if you're good or bad. You just can't come to our box and delete anything, once it's been marked immutable. And I think that's the way it ought to be.
It's the only way.
I've told this story before, but my first week on the job in my previous place, I was fresh out of college. Someone literally destroyed the database of the entire customer database for one of our projects because they were told to by someone else, and they were pointed to the wrong ESX host. So, accidents happen too, right? Like, should someone so new, another intern be exposed to something so devastating on there? I think he was there 4 months. I was there for a week, and he came in my office, told me what happened. I was like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to you? He's fine. He was told to do it. So again, it's just really look at what you got, understand it, make sure that you assume the worst, and then you can prepare for the best kind of recovery.
Yep.
Agreed.
What an episode, folks. I feel like we've talked about it a lot. So let me just go ahead and pull up the code one more time. So if you've not read our Zero Trust and Secure Backup for Enterprises white paper, give that QR link a scan. Highly recommend it. If you're listening, you can just go to any search engine and type in Zero Trust Data Resilience. You can find the Veeam research paper. You can find our white paper. You can follow Sterling's finger and scan that thing. There's so many ways you can read this, and I do advise you read it. It's not marketing fluff. It's meant to be purely educational, and it is the best way to ensure you have a recovery point at all costs. It's not going to sell you a product. It's instead going to educate you on a practice. And that's what we're here to do, is to help educate you around this practice. We will be meeting with the author of the Zero Trust Data Resilience later this month on our webinar series. If you're interested in that, we'll be posting about that soon on LinkedIn. Make sure you register and sign up for that. It will be a great opportunity to take any questions you might have directly to the source. That's Jason Garbus. We'll be talking with him soon, and it's going to be a great show. So I highly recommend you check that out too. Matt, Sterling, any closing thoughts from y'all?
I think go ahead, Sterling.
I was just gonna say, just watch your devices. Look and see. We saw this list. We went through everything. It's time to just check and have a plan before anything happens. Matt.
Yeah, I think for me, selfish plug to what we do, backups are everything. And it's one of the little sayings I used to always coin it. When I was doing engineering at Veeam, is backups are one thing, but recoveries are everything. So it's not just about having the backup, right? But it's making sure the backup is recoverable. Now, whether or not that's doing verification testing with like Sure Backup, where the 32110 comes in, or just making sure the backups can't be compromised. Those two things have to be paramount in today's world, to make sure that if you do have a bad actor, like the admin that just blew away 180 VMs, you have a backup plan that you don't have to second guess. You just know, hey, they're immutable. We got them. They're on the UBI 192 node. We can just go recover, right? Yeah, they're fired and they're going to prison, but our business is still going to, stay afloat, and we're not going to have that reputation hit of downtime and losing customers and database corruption and all this other stuff, right? So I think that's absolutely critical. Let's not forget about the people. There's more threats out there than just ransomware.
Well said. Couldn't add anything more to that if I wanted to. So instead, I'll end it with this. Next week, we're going to be talking about how emojis will destroy you. And if that doesn't sound interesting, then I can't help you. You're on the wrong show. So make sure to tune in next week and learn all about this new, just existential threat of emojis. And until then, stay weightless, stay frictionless, stay zero gravity.